Okay, good evening everybody. We are ready to start. Let me see the attendees. I hope you hear me well. Okay, so good evening to everybody. My name is Dim Chutsanov and I'll be the presenter this evening. I have muted the attendees, but if you want to ask something or to tell me that you're not hearing well or whatever, just feel free to write in the conversation box. Okay, so this webinar is about migrating on-premise data to SharePoint, but let me first explain you more about the event and why it is happening. So SharePoint user group of Bulgaria is creating monthly events, and we are trying to build strong community for SharePoint in Bulgaria. We have live events face-to-face, but from this month we decide to add also webinar. So you can follow all the information about our events on the site that you see on the screen. But let's jump directly to the three big W that supports every meeting. Why this topic is important, who will be the presenter and why you should trust him, and of course what we are going to see within the next hour. About the topic, why it is important and you should care about, well, the cloud deployments are here, they are fact. Many companies deploy their content in the online version, and of course the logical question is, if we have on-premise deployment and data, how difficult will be to move our data in the cloud. So this webinar aims to provide you the initial research how to start migrating your data. We start from here. The question is how we can start and how complex will be the whole process. So these are the questions that we are going to answer in this evening. Who am I? My name is Dimchu. I'm a SharePoint freelancer and I work only on SharePoint projects. Why you should trust me? Well, I'll leave this decision to you. But if you stay till the end of this webinar, I'll show you a proof that you should not trust to anybody at 100%. Let's say trust him at 90%, but always keep in mind that it might be not absolutely correct. So, but yeah, I'll speak this about at the end of the webinar. Why I'm presenting this topic? Currently, I did a research for one project and I want to share my findings and to show you them, of course. What will be the content? I won't present slides. I'll focus on a live demo and we'll do two things. First, we'll move one document library in the cloud and we'll see how easy it will be if we need to move folders, and we'll compare the two approaches. We'll discuss a lot of technical things like taxonomy, how to provision list instances in the cloud, and we'll do all this with PowerShell. But don't worry, you should not be a master on the PowerShell. We'll use very base commands. We'll use only API commands, so we won't write big iteration or something complex. But PowerShell will be the main API that we'll use. About the questions, we have two cups that we want to give to somebody of you. So how you can get this cup, it's simple, just ask questions. You can type them in the conversation area. All kind of questions are allowed, even what is first, the egg or the chicken. So if you want to ask this, feel free, you will be able to win the cup. Two of you in a random way will be picked up from the questions and they will win these cups. Okay, so we are ready to go. This is the last slide that I'm going to show. So now I will move to my machine. Just one note about the webinar. This webinar is recorded, so at the end it will be the link to the record will be put on our site, and all questions that you asked will be there with the related answers. Okay, so what we have now. I'm switching now to my virtual machine. Let me see, how do you see my screen? I think you see it well, but if there is any problem, please feel free to write about this. The scenarios that we will use in this session will be a single document library with several files. First, we have this demo file that is 001, and as you can see from the properties, we have default publishing. So I tried to create one document library with all of the specifics that we may have when we move document libraries. So we have versioning, we have minor and major versioning, we have content approval, and we have several columns, 2 taxonomy and 1 lookup. This customer column is a lookup. So if I go to the library settings just to show you better, these are our columns. The lookup column and 2 taxonomies. Why 2 taxonomies? Because the taxonomy is the most specific column when we speak about migration. And one of the columns in our library is attached to a global term store, while the other is attached to site collection scope term store. So we'll see during the process of migration how this will affect our work. And of course, the lookup column, they are very used in real production scenarios. Okay, so something else that we may face when we deal with production data, this is files that have not check-in version. So in my document library, we have also this scenario. And of course, security. We have one file, this particular report template, that has broken security. And it has also a custom permission level. So let's see how we'll move all this into the cloud. I told you we'll use PowerShell, so now I'll switch to my PowerShell. Let me zoom a little. I think now you see it. So we are speaking for on-premise data. What I showed you was one document library that is inside SharePoint 2013. Why I select 2013? Because still most of the companies are on this version. If we have the task to migrate this to another SharePoint farm, even on a different web application, what we would use is the server-side API and command like export SPWeb and then import SPWeb. And with this server-side API, we have the specifics that we can say, okay, we want a specific library. This is URL of some library, or we want to export and import the whole website. So this was if we need to deal with on-premise, but in the cloud, we don't have this. Interesting is that to migrate the document library, actually the first things that we will do is using on-premise command to export the library. Just before starting with all this PowerShell, just to give you some summary, we are going to use something that is called Office 365 Migration API. So I'll switch now my screen and I'll open the browser. So if you do some research, you will hit several articles like the one that I'm showing. And here, this API is referenced as SharePoint Online Migration PowerShell. Yes, this is the same. It's the SharePoint, it's the Office 365 Migration API. Also, there is one good webinar about how to use this. But I'll show you in practice these commands and some specifics. Okay, so let's jump to the PowerShell again. We'll use one on-premise tenant, which is on one URL. I will change my script. So let's run this first command, and it is well known from the on-premise world. Whoop, error. Let's see what is this. Actually, This is because I didn't import the SharePoint API. So let me first do like this. I will highlight this and I run this command. This will load the API. So now when I run this export SP web, it will create a solution package. I will just check my file shared, the place where all packages will go, and I will delete my previous test. So our code is working. Okay, back here, and I will run this command. We wait a little, it does not show any issues, but just to explain you about this command, we provide URL. This URL is in our on-premise environment. We provide web relative URL to a document library, and we say to this command, export everything at this location. Also include security and include versions. If we go and check what actually this command have created, it have done this. A lot of these data files plus several XMLs. So this is our package that we can generate using the server-side API. So now we are going to use only Office 365 specific things. The first is just let's authenticate against our tenant. I'll run this script and provide my password. The first command that is part from this migration API is this command with a long name. But what actually this command do, it takes the package that we just generated and it translated in the way that the cloud can understand this. What we mean under the cloud, actually we provide this URL and then we provide again a URL to a library. Let me just open this site so we see what is there. I'll use this browser. Just to save you some time, I have prepared some things, so let me just explain what. If we take a look in the API, we will see that what this command wants is one URL, it wants credentials, and it wants URL to a library. So what should be this library is the logical questions. Well, this library it will be the target place. So what I have created here in the Office tenant is okay, sorry, I lose my words. Okay, so if we are going to move this library in the cloud, we will need the same library in the cloud, right? So under the same, we will need our columns, we'll need the metadata. So one logical thing will be, okay, why should not we save our on-premise library as a template, go in Office 365, upload it, and create a library based on this template? So actually, I do exactly this. I save my library as a template, then I create it, upload it here, and now I'm going to create you a library based on this template, and I will name it in this way. Why I'm name it in this way? Because this will be our URL. So one logical question would be, okay, if we have a small document library, can we save the library as a template, including the files, then upload it in the cloud and create exactly the action that I did? Well, yes, you can. Now we see that we have a problem with the lookup. So now in this online library, I came here and I'll delete the lookup column. After I delete this lookup column, this library actually will be accessible and we will see what is inside it. So we see that our files are here, but yes, but obviously it is again it approved state, but the version is different. So if I just switch again the tabs and show you the real on-premise library, let me just find it because I lose it. Yes, this one. So you see that here we have more versions. And here we have customer taxonomy 1, taxonomy 2. But if we go the on-premise library, we'll see that actually our files are here, but the metadata is missing. So this my action, I did this just to prove you that if you save your library is as a template, even setting the options to include your files, this is not going to help you. It will help you with the simple columns like single line of text, multiple line of text, but it will not resolve the versioning plus the complicated column like taxonomies and lookup. So this approach obviously is not going to work. So I'll delete this content that is here. But now what we have is in our on-premise environment, we created a library. So let's just see what this PowerShell can do if we passed this particular document library to the script. So now I'm going to run this command and we'll discuss it later. It is executing. If you see in the top left, it is processing something. It is written migrating object data, so on, and it's completed. So this command actually do very important thing. It takes the exported files, it review their metadata, then opens the SharePoint Online site, go to the library that we have specified, and try to map the columns. What this means, it's mapped them by internal name, not by GUID. So if in our target library we have a column that has the same name as our on-premise, and this is not taxonomy or lookup, actually the data will be mapped. So it might sound a little bit confusing, but I'll show you the generated stuff. So first, we exported our on-premise data here. Then we tell to this command to generate this. So these are XMLs that do mapping between the columns. Okay, let's see what will happen if we continue. So on the next steps, how we can move our data to the cloud, we'll need to use Azure storage. And especially we will need to create Azure container to upload our packages there and then to use Azure job to do the work. Wow, it might sound very complicated, but from our point of view, we are using just the API command. So for us, it's important just to write correctly our paths and so on. Actually, now I see one mistake that I have in my scripts. Let me tell you why I have an error. If you see here, we have 3 paths. The first one is the places where we exported our metadata from the first column. The second path is something that actually I didn't explain it. And the third thing is a folder where the result of this command will be stored. So let me explain to you about this metadata. If I go again here to the originally generated export, these exports have data and metadata. So if I copy this metadata and cut it and move it to the different place, actually this is the metadata. So these are the definition and explanation on the on-premises metadata structure. And what does the command do is it maps, it do some changes and generate this new package. So let me again fix this by rerunning the command. Why migration API is API is an interesting topic. Well, it is not well documented. It is a big pain to work with this. Okay, so we generated something that we put it here, and what we need to do, as I explained it, is to move these packages to Azure container. So here we will need to have an Azure subscriptions. I have connected this tenant with an Azure subscription, and I generate something called a storage account. The storage account is something like username and password, but actually it is a name and a token that we need to put in our scripts in order to authenticate against Azure. So I did this. Feel free to copy this token if you are able to remember it. So now I'll continue with, I'll just create one variable which will help me to see the package. I'll explain to you later what is this. And now we go to a third command that I told you we're using the migration API, and this is the third command that we need to use. Simply this command will take the package that we tell to it, so this converted package will tell where our data file, and this will be moved in the Azure container. So let's execute this. But what does it mean Azure storage? So I will use one tool that is named my Azure Storage Explorer, and I have connected it with my Azure account. So here I'm able, if I refresh, to see two things. Something block storage, that here we have files. If you take a look at this, actually these are my data file, and we have something else that is named package, and here are the XMLs. So in this way we can upload to the Azure a big amount of data with gigabytes. I didn't test this with gigabytes, but this is something that I'll do as the next steps. But on theory we can upload gigabytes of data, provide the description in XMLs, and then again using a command from the API we can create a job that will process our data. What means process? It will read these XMLs, it will read this data, and will try to upload this data to the target document library. How we can monitor this? Actually we are creating one queue. Let me just refresh here and show you. Here is one queue, and messages starts appearing here. If you try to read this, it looks like ULS log, so it's a big pain to read. So we just can hope that nothing breaks. I'm joking, of course. I'll show you how to debug these logs, but there is no easy way. This might be a pain if we need to debug it. So I will refresh a little. Here some messages are appearing. If I open one of the messages, we can see somewhere that it will tell us that some item is created. But let's go in our library, on-premise library, and see what is happening there. So I'll refresh this. And now, wow, we have again files. Well, this is some progress. It seems that we are migrating something with these commands. And if we see here the versions, now this number seems to be correctly. So if we take a look inside the version history, we will see that at least now all of the versions are here, but only some of the metadata appears. What I mean under some of the metadata, it looks that the approval status is here. It seems that my notes, which is multi-line of text column, appear, but our taxonomy and lookup is not here. So actually this seems to be the biggest challenge when we move the data from on-premise to the cloud. How to preserve these specific columns. Something else that you may notice is that the users appear. Of course, you don't know well the tenant and what users exist in this tenant. So let me just show you something. If I click on the version history, we can see that the first users that have added this file is test user 1. We have Georgi Georgiev, Ivan Ivanov. As you see it, very popular Bulgarian names. But if you click on one of these users, what will happen is that we will get this page. So actually something is wrong with the users. Why is that? I use a tenant that is not synchronized with my local Active Directory. Why I did this is just because I wanted to show you that the users will appear here. It may look that everything is correct, but actually it is not. In order all this to work, we have two options. First is to find a way how to map the on-premise users to the cloud users, or option 2, to synchronize our on-premise with the cloud. Of course, in the production deployments, we'll use the second options. I mean, under production, I'm speaking about enterprise scenarios that we are going to move a lot of data. But the second scenario is also very applicable, because we may have some small SharePoint environment. We have two documents library. We want to move this in the cloud, but we don't want to synchronize. Both options are valid business cases, and they can be addressed not easily, but they can be addressed. If we have AD sync, then this user will appear and it will work. If not, if we are in this case that I'm showing you, I'll speak about later how we can map the users. But here is one things that you need to remember if you plan such migration. Deleted users from the Active Directory may be a hidden challenge, because if you're moving document library with history within 3-5 years, definitely you will have users that have quit the company, and if their users are deleted from the Active Directory, you may reach this situation. The users will appear, but when you hit it, you get this, which actually might be okay. So we have two options: either to use this, the users to be clickable but nothing to appear, or to do some mapping. Okay, perfect. We move something, but it is not absolutely correct. So, but our initial test was we get these commands that are listed in the MSDN. We create one tenant, we create library based on save as template from the on-premise, run the commands, but obviously this won't be the absolutely correct way. What we need to do? Actually, the real and process requires to do the things in a different way. Obviously, the first thing that we need to do is to import the columns, content type, and taxonomy inside the Office 365 tenant. And the question is, how should we do this? Well, here we can rely on one code that is written from the pattern and practices community. Radia Tanasov, who is one of the members that drive the SharePoint user group, helps for this community-driven code. And actually, this is one of the easiest way to solve the challenge: how to export the on-premise content type, columns, and lists instances, and to deploy this into the cloud. So now I will use my second site collection that I have prepared for this demo. It is on URL 6. So now we'll do everything in the correct way. What this means: first we'll use PowerShell to export our on-premise content types and list instances. Let me just import files. Yes, we need. Let me take a look. Export assets. Okay, wrong PowerShell. So as I told you, we will use the pattern and practices API. Just one note: be careful when you start using them. you need to be careful what you are installing. So on my machine that is actually hosting SharePoint 2013, I have installed this module. But if you are in a SharePoint 2016 environments, you need, of course, to install this. And on my client machine, my laptop that I will switch later, I have installed this one. Why? Because here, being on the SharePoint server, I'll export the setting using this API, but when I want to communicate with the online tenant, I will use this, logically. Okay, so let's start doing. And just a remark of what we are doing, we want to export these particular things. And how should we export it? This is the command that we need to use. We need to use the provisioning API and especially get provisioning template. Here, I'll do it in this because I'm on the server. I can run this command. First, I will initialize my source URL, and then I will run this command. I will authenticate with my current credentials because I'm on the server. Let me just go in my share, the destination of this command, and remove, no, just to ensure that provisioning folder is here. Perfect, it is here. It has some files, but just to see that I'm not lying to you, that I'm running actually something, I will change the name of my templates and I'll name it 6. Why 6? Because this number appears in my site collections. Actually, I have tried this 5 times, so now in front of you, I hope I will do it in the correct way. Just something. Okay, I'm looking into the conversation area. Nobody is complaining from the audio or the picture, so I assume that you see my screen. Okay, let's run this. Something is executing. So now this API download my site as a template, my on-premise site. Let's wait a little for this. And again, you may find different way to export your on-premise data, like content types, list instances, content types. But I will recommend using this API, the pattern and practices. Okay, something was downloaded. I will now switch to my host machine. Why? Because there I have Visual Studio, and I'll go to provisioning folder and I will open the generated XML, this file here. I won't go in details in this, but this XML do actually pretty good work. It exports the security, it exports navigation, but the most important thing, it exports the site columns, the content type, and the lists. And take a note, these are list instances. So if we edit this XML in the way that remove what we don't want, what I mean we don't want, for example, we can remove these property back entries. We can remove the list definitions for system libraries like images, microfield, whatever. All this, if we clear this XML, at the end, we will reach to this particular XML. And this particular XML contains only my specific column related to the document library that I'm going to import. Something that I have done but I don't tell you is that all the document library and the lookup list, they used site columns and site content types, and all of the columns have one prefix, that is this which is the abbreviation of the SharePoint user groups. In this way, for me was very easy to find all of the columns. because finding your columns in this XML might be a hell. But if you have properly named the internal names, you will get easily your specific columns that you want to import in production. Do you need site fields and site content types? You need them only if your document library uses this. And of course, even if your document library uses site content types and columns, you are not required to import this. You can directly import the lists, and these list instances will create a local copy of these columns. But because we are discussing the enterprise scenario where you need to move your data, then it will be correctly to import site columns and site content types. Okay, so I showed you what this API exports, one big XML, and by searching into the site fields and content types, we are able to extract only the information that we need. But just one note about the security. Pattern practices API can export and import actually the users. And here is the place where, one of the places where we can change and do manual mapping of our users. If we don't have synchronizations with our online tenant, here if we replace these users with the Office 365, it will work. I have tested this. But of course this will be a pain, but it is an option. So you need manually to replace these users with the related on-premise account. Okay. So because this XML, I have edited this XML so we don't lose time for this. We have only 20 minutes left. So I'll use this XML. I will switch back to my PowerShell, but this time, let me just close this. Sorry, I lose my mouse. Let me close this. This time I will run PowerShell from my laptop, from my host machine, and I'll communicate with the Office 365. How we can import this template? We can import it with a single command, and this will be provisioned if everything is okay. But now I remember something. Before we import this, let me show you what is written inside the taxonomy. Remember, taxonomy columns are very specific and actually they cause the problems. So this is the definition of the taxonomy column. This is taxonomy 2 column, and it is mapped to the site collection scoped term store. In the XML that we are going to provision, the description of the term store is in this way. We have some token that is named site collection group, and then directly the name of the term set. So what does this mean? In order to provision correctly this XML, we need first to have our taxonomy imported. Wow. So what we need to do then is, before running this, we need to go again to our on-premise machine and export and import the taxonomy. But the important thing is that we need these IDs, the taxonomy IDs. Otherwise, we won't be able to migrate our data. So again, I will use command from the pattern and practices API, and this command is export my terms. Here the term set that this GUID is my site collection scope. But let me just show you this in a picture, otherwise there are too many words that may not actually explain a lot. So what I showed you are two GUIDs, so we'll export this particular term set based on its ID. And then we'll export the global term sets again based on its ID. I will go to my export place. I will delete these two XMLs sorry, text files. Interesting thing is that the API exports the data inside text files, but well, this is the API. Do I need to run this to authenticate? Let's do it. And now I will run this. And now I will run this. Well, I'm running some commands here. If we don't see something in red, this means that nothing fails. Of course, it didn't fail, but what is exported in these text files is a different story. So I'll open one of these files, and as you see, there are some, there are GUIDs plus some strings. If you take a better look at this, you will see that actually the first part of this XML is description of the term set. Description by name and GUID. So this GUID name came from here. This is the group plus the name of this term set. Why I'm showing you this? Because now we are going to import this in the cloud, but for the cloud it will be important to have this site scoped term store. So let me directly change again the browsers and open my Office 365 tenant. This is the tenant, and I will go to, sorry, but I'll switch to the classic view so we see the information in the same way from on-premise and cloud. Okay, I'm within my site collection. Do you know how you can create a site collection scoped term set? Well, I'll show you. You need to go to create one column. For example, I'll use test. And then we need to select manage metadata. And then when you select this second option, after a while test will appear here. But what happened behind the screen, actually we have generated site collection scoped term group. Perfect. So I will just speed up my demo because we have only 20 minutes left. So I will copy this name. I will open this term sets, the exported data, and I will replace the name with the online one. And also I will go and I will copy the GUID of this group. Of course, I'll write a blog post where I'll document all these steps, because as you see, there are many GUIDs, they are specific, but these are actually, I think the last XML that I will edit manually. My goal was just to prove that migrating data to SharePoint Online is not actually a big pain. There are just few steps that we need to follow in the correct way. Okay, I edit my exported XML. I provide this, the name and the GUID. So now we need to run some PowerShell. My screen freeze. Okay, now again I have a control. So let's start importing taxonomy. I'll connect to my tenant. Again, now I'm on my laptop. That's why I'll need again to connect. I make sure that the tenant URL is right. I'm providing the password. Okay, it seems to work. Then I will run this. Well, let's hope we don't see anything in red. Wow, this seems to go. Let's go again here and refresh. Waiting, the page refreshed, and see, now we have the taxonomy that we exported, imported inside the SharePoint Online. And something very, very important, the GUIDs are one and the same. So keeping the GUIDs actually is the most important thing in this process, because otherwise we'll need to edit a lot of XMLs. But if we do it in this way, we'll have a taxonomy imported with the GUIDs. Here we need to say that there is another option. Instead of exporting and importing taxonomy, we may go to a hybrid deployment. If we configure our on-premise in a hybrid configuration and we configure our term store, then this global term set will appear here for free without anything else, and it will be in sync with our on-premise one. So just take one note: if we can use hybrid, or we are planning hybrid, this process will be much easier. We don't need to import and export anything. Okay, we exported the global term set. Actually, this was the easiest step, so I'm a little afraid about this one, but let's run it and see what will happen. Yeah, so what now it tells us is that something is wrong. I have faced this error several times. The message, of course, is not very descriptive. It tells us that it's a problem with the database or something like this. What happens actually is that there is another site collections that have term store with the same name that I'm trying to import. So this is just a good example of that there are hidden challenges. I'm not saying issue, because I believe actually that if you use the API in the correct way, everything should work. Yeah, but I'm not proving this just right now. What I'm doing, if you see, is I'm changing URLs, and I'm trying to see that some of my test site collections that I have done before this webinar contains this term set, but actually I'm not able to find it. So for now, I'll skip this creation of the site collection scope term store, and I'll continue with the process. Why? Because I want to show you that my lookup and at least one of the taxonomy column will appear. Okay, let's just summarize the whole picture before running the last piece of scripts. Well, we imported columns, content type, and list definitions. We export taxonomy. We were able to import one of the taxonomy, and now we're in a position where we'll run the last. Actually, I know why this breaks, because I use a different file. Give me just a last try. I run the previous command. Wow, now so this file was wrong. I was playing before the demo. So now if I came here and refresh, what you should see is also the site collection term set. Whoa. But of course on the correct URL. Remember, I used 6, not 4. So last try. Wow, it's here. So how to tell you, SharePoint works. Actually, my opinion is that everything works. The challenge, the only one thing is that we need to be very careful and not to do something that is not absolutely correct. Why I'm telling this? Because many people say that SharePoint is not working, but actually it's working. We just must be very, very careful of what we are doing. Wow, strange sentences that I said, but okay, let's run my final command. This command aims to import site content types, columns, list definitions, list instances, sorry. I'm waiting a little about this. I see that there are a lot of questions. I'm joking, of course. It's it's fair that you are not asking questions. I'm showing a lot of XML commands, and if you haven't go through this process, it's hard to follow. All these scripts, everything will be written in a post inside the SharePoint User Group Bulgaria site. So you'll be able to refer to this. Okay, something is happening. While we are waiting about this, I'll just go again to my on-premise server and I will review my scripts for the final try. What I mean under final try, we are going to execute absolutely the same scripts as we did in the beginning, but we'll change the URL of our target site. Now we have on theory do our homework, so our lists and columns are deployed into the on-premise tenant. Okay, I'll switch again here. The URL is correct. We'll actually, I will not copy manually my metadata. I will change this URL to be one and the same. Let me again review. This seems to be okay. I'm going to my provisioning folder. I'll delete the previous exports. Okay, let's see. Perfect. The command for importing list instances and content types completed without an error. Let's just take one fast look. If we go to site contents, whether we'll be able to see, yes, we see customers and we see our document library. If we enter inside this document library and we go to list settings, let's see, okay, we have customers, the lookup column. If we enter inside this, wow, it seems to be automatically mapped to the list instance that it was created. So everything looks perfect. The only one piece that is missing here are actually the customers items, because in the on-premise site I have several items here. So what is important, how you can move list items. Unfortunately, the pattern and practices migration API is not doing this automatically, so we'll need to use the client-side object model to create this. For now, just to speed up the work, what I will do is, look, I will create 5 items manually, just providing something inside the name. And this is very good example of how all this mapping is doing. Actually, the import that we are going to run now doesn't care about the actual data. It cares about, in this case, for the lookups. And the lookups means, is there any item with ID 3? If yes, okay, the document that we will import will be connected to the item with ID 4. Nothing more. Even this is totally different data, the import will be successful. So I type something here, again manually create customers, and these customers are totally different from the customers that I have in my on-premise. But anyway, the import will be successful, but instead ABC will show the other item. Okay, so let's run the command that we run in the beginning. First, export SP web. We run this. It takes some time exporting. Perfect. Generates the originally exported data. We run again this. We take the credentials about our last site collection. We run again this script. Now it is changing the XML, do some mapping, and actually map the on-premise columns with the one that are in the cloud. Okay, we'll create a new job. I'll run directly all this. Remember, now we deploy these packages to the Azure storage and we'll execute a job that will try to provision our data based on the XMLs. While all this is happening, I came here and look, now if I refresh the block container, there will be a new files here. And of course, it might be a big pain to work with this if we don't name this in a correct way. So my queue here starts with C7. I'll refresh. This is my new queue, and something starts to execute in the background. Okay, so let's wait a little for this process to complete. What I'm expecting to happen is when I go to my document library, this one, and refresh it, our file should be there with all of the versions and all of the columns. But let's see, this is just a promise. So we have only 4 minutes left. I'll just try to summarize what I discussed. I show you a lot of commands, a lot of PowerShell. So migrating on-premise data to the cloud might be a challenge. Yes, there are a lot of hidden issues that we may hit, but the most important thing is to do the steps in the correct order. First, we need to export the column content types and list instances for on-premise and to deploy to the cloud. For this, we can use Pattern and Practices API. Very, very helpful API. It will do the magic for us, and we need to edit the XMLs. So based on this API, we exported the template of the site, we added this template, we exported the taxonomy, and then we imported it. When everything was ready, then we referenced to the Office 365 migration API and these two columns. The first that is transferring our original package, this one that is uploading the package to Azure, and this one that execute a job that somehow is doing the magic. Okay, let's just check our queue, what's happened. Wow, it seems that something is happening. How you can debug this is another interesting question. Well, if you go to your package, you will see something that is called import log file. So if you open it, yes, it looks a big, the regular SharePoint logs, but you have logs, true, they are very hard to read and to debug. But at least we have something to rely on. Too many words, okay, we are ready to go. I'll just came here, I'll just enter in this document library, and wow, it seems that everything is here, at least at first look. So if I open the version history, the file with the old metadata is here. This specific that I told you, the import, when we import lookups, it cares about the ID of the item inside the lookup list. It does not care about the actual data. So my dummy items actually worked. I have 1 and 5. I have the versions, I have users, everything is here. What is not here actually are two things. One is the security. Why? Because if I have synced my on-premise tenant with my Active Directory, then it will appear here the group that I have specific security. And the second thing that is not here are the files that are not checked in for all users. So very important, if you're going to do any migrations, make sure that you don't have files without checking in version. I will also say ask your users to check in the files. All files must be checked in so you won't face then issues. So yes, as you see, the file is not there. But the good thing is that the versions are here and the metadata are here. So this was the demo. I prepared after the weekend all these scripts, and the video will be uploaded in the community site. So in the section archive, you'll be able to find the data in the same way that it is for all of the events. You have the demo plus the slides and answer to all your questions, and I can tell you for sure, wow, we have one questions. Yes, I will answer to it in the, and we have another questions. Perfect, feel free to ask questions. I'll look at them and I will answer, but just 1 minute. The first questions from Živko: does the approach support SharePoint 2010? No. Unfortunately, if you want 2010, you need to backup to move the content database to 2013. Some of the third-party tools are doing this, but I'll try to see how this can be addressed without third-party tools. For now, the short answer is no. And the next question is: we have size with 20 or 30 gigabytes in 2013. In order to migrate large size to SharePoint Online, any specific issues we have to be aware is actually it will work, but just make sure that you have the columns inside your Office 365, you have correctly configured security and lookup taxonomy, all this, and then I think that the Azure storage will be able to upload it. But I haven't tested it. My next thing is to test with 5 gigabytes. Of course, 30 is more than 5, but at least after I'm testing with 5 gigabytes, I'll be able to give you more input. I'll write my tests on the site that I show. Okay, and the last question, you have library with 100,000 of documents. Yes, this is interesting, but as you saw, this API should not be affected from the throttling. So on theory, you should not experience issues. But I'm saying on theory. Unfortunately, until you test everything, you cannot be sure. But I believe if everything else is absolutely correct and configured, the count of the documents and the size should not be the problem. Okay, so thank you for this webinar, and it was a big pleasure for me to try this webinar. I have one request: feel free to give your feedback and please be honest. It's not a problem if you say that the speaker was not presenting well or so on. Just be honest. For us, it's very important to understand how we can improve everything. We'll have additional webinars, so please follow us in the networks. Thank you. I'll answer to all questions, and I'll put the answer to all questions inside the blog. Thank you and have a good evening.